is happening, Stokastic baseball fans? A little late start here today for the Live Before Lock show. That is my fault. It's about 4,000 degrees in here because my air conditioning doesn't work. I was watching some TV, had hours before the show, plenty of time to put my model together, and happened to doze off and woke up a little bit too late. So I'm doing this on the fly a little bit here, but fortunately, I'm here with my pal Gundacker, who is prepared, who's ready to talk through this slate, and who's got all the data in front of him. So we're going to throw a lot to Gun here. Gun, what's going on, man? How's your Saturday going?
It's good. I've only woken up like an hour or two ago, but I'm a weird sleep schedule. But I was gonna say all lineups are out, so there's no sweat now. It's a pretty turnkey process from this point on. So you got time.
Yeah, it's pretty solid. Got some time. I don't have placeholder lineups in, so I won't be entering anything, probably looks like, but we'll talk through this whole slate. I've got a line page up in front of me. It's not my usual model because that's not filled in, but we'll talk through game by game here. We're brought to you by Odd Shopper today, you guys, our sister site. You guys know about them. You know, you love them. Hit the like, hit the subscribe. Helps us out quite a bit here. We'll talk a little bit more about Odd Shopper in a little while. We've got free stuff up on the site today. Ownership projections for MLB. Looks like UFC pro plays are up there as well. So make sure you're jumping on that. Gun, we'll jump in. Let's just dive right in here, head first into the first game. First one up on the screen that I'm looking at here is the Cardinals and the Phillies. We've got Cards with Matt Liberatore on the mound, taking on Kyle Gibson and the Phillies. Are we going to either one of these pitchers here at all?
Man, I have some interest in Gibson just to tap into a 25% carry to righties, but Cardinals have been able to break up that lineup more so now than years past with more lefties. So I'm not, a strong exposure to Gibson, but I have a little bit. I think I was sitting about 6% just in case he's able to get through it. And we haven't projected at a 9% chance of having a top two finish there. So I think it's worth having a little bit, but I wouldn't be overzealous about it.
And then anything on the Liberatore side of things against these Phillies? No Bryce Harper in there. You got some still clever type power hitting righties in that lineup, though.
Yeah, so far it's been a really rough outing in the major league level for Liberatore against righties. We do obviously expect him to get better as he goes forward, but this is a tough ballpark and a tough team, especially guys like Rhys Hoskins, Castellanos, and JT Realmuto, 2 through 4. That's a death row right there. I have a lot of exposure to that little lane. So right now I have almost no Liberatore, and I am invested in the Phillies.
Yeah, I think that makes some sense. And I'm going to definitely want to get to those same righties that you named. Kyle Schwarber, I have no issues, lefty problem with him. Not really going to be a problem for me as far as rostering him off the top of this team. Do you go to anybody from the bottom end of the Phillies? Like how far down that lineup do you go? You get to Alec Bohm at the 5, or you're looking at any Vierling, Odubel, Yairo, Bryson Stott to fill out a lineup? Do you get to that part of the lineup? I've done fairly well with Stott so far this year in some spots.
Bryson Stott's at the top there. Again, I think his major league numbers are going to improve drastically. I mean, how could they not? And so, yeah, I don't mind some 9-hole Bryson Stott. And then, I have a couple of those other guys just because of the ballpark being what it is, but Stott leads the list. And ironically, the home team 9-hole hitter is my favorite of those bottom 4.
And then what about that? What about the other side of this one against Kyle Gibson, who you said you have a little bit? Is this going to be scumdackery for you? Going with some Cards bats as well? Looks like basically the full version of the Cards lineup.
Yeah, I mean, this team is slugging 400 as a team against righties on the season, above average in WRC plus, and one of their biggest detriments on the season is they play in Busch Stadium. So this is not Busch Stadium, one of the biggest park boosts that they see being part of the NL. So I gotta attack the park, and if they can get through Gibson, and Gibson has a rough outing, Gibson also allows over $1.25 home run per 9 to righties. So it's still a spot. I can't pass up on Goldie and Arenado in Citizens Bank. It's just too good.
Yeah. And then if we're stacking that team out fully, I mean, we've got Goldie and Arenado, Edman, killer leadoff man up at the top. Donovan's been having a nice season. Do you go down? I mean, Nolan Gorman, obviously ton of power from the left side of the plate there. You don't want to skip him. Do you get down into the Juan Yepez, Dylan Carlson, Nootbaar area? Yepez has been in my lineups all year long when I go to this team. Do you go to Carlson, Nootbaar at all? The 7, 8, 9 hitters here?
I slow down right at Carlson. I'll get some of him. Nootbaar and Herrera, I'm not that enthralled with, though.
Yeah, those two guys are the ones that typically get cut. And for me, Carlson is, he's basically the break point. Like he'll be in a few lineups here and there when I stack this team a lot. And then, I don't get to a ton of the other guys. I had a killer lineup the other night with Nuke sitting at a 0 in it and dragging it down like an anchor. Anything else to say about this one? Looks like, is there any concern for weather on this one? It looks like it is flagged for a little bit of weather on this site.
Yeah, there could be some scattered rain, but it's one of those we don't know for sure yet situations. But I don't think there's any postponement risk, just something that might knock the little bit of Gibson and interest I have.
Yeah, might just impact the pitchers. And so keep an eye on that as Locke approaches. Sitting 70 some odd miles northeast of Philadelphia, we're supposed to get a lot of weather here in the New York area too. And it's kind of that way. It's just overcast and lousy out right now. And like I said, just hot and muggy and miserable. But you know what that's like down in Texas. Anything else to say about this one? Or should we move on to White Sox and Giants?
Yeah, we keep moving.
Cool. Dylan Cease on the hill for the White Sox, taking on Logan Webb. Good pitching matchup here in San Francisco. 14-mile-an-hour wind blowing out. People were making a big deal out of the San Francisco wind yesterday. It's usually blowing out in San Francisco. It's kind of a typical environment there. Two good lineups, two good pitchers in this one. What do you want to do with this game as far as the pitchers go?
How is this like a 1 p.m. game and it's 56 degrees, bro? I
San Francisco, man.
I wish it was 50 degrees where I'm at.
That's the old famous line. The coldest winter I ever spent was a summer in San Francisco.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, I mean, both these pitchers are premier upside guys. Dylan Cease, a little bit more intriguing to me than I thought it would be this morning. The Giants, not typically a team I target with, high strikeout intentions. I guess the 22% carried on the season, but this version of the Giants lineup has a much higher aggregate strikeout than that number. And I think Estrada got scratched about an hour ago. Only Tommy La Stella has a sub 20% carry since the beginning of last year against righties. So it's actually a pretty decent spot for Cease's upside. Massive park boost for him, and the temps are on his side too. So I actually have a bit of interest in Dylan Cease. Right now, it's coming in as my highest owned pitcher, a 35% overall K rate with a 2.54 expected ERA on the season. That dog will hunt, especially in Oracle. So I'm definitely interested in Cease here.
What about on the other side? You going to any shares of Logan Webb? We've seen a bit of a bounce back from him recently as far as the strikeout numbers go. Strikeouts were down for most of the season, but basically everything else was there kind of popping for him. So are you going to any shares of Logan Webb here?
Yeah, White Sox have been 10 points, 11 points below league average in WRC plus against righties. Something that we keep expecting to get better, but it really hasn't been. A 55% ground ball rate to righties for Logan Webb with a 57% ground ball rate to lefties. So not really put himself in a big risk to give up the long ball. I don't think he's given up a homer at home yet this season, if I'm not mistaken. So with the matchup and with his, what we know can be decent strikeout stuff, still room for improvement to go forward. I definitely think at 8,800, he's worth a play. I think he's coming in as my third highest owned pitcher right now behind Cease and Kirby.
Okay. Yeah, it looks on the FanDuel board where this game is part of the main slate. It's a bit weird today. We've got 6-gamer on DK starting later, and then the 9-gamer on FanDuel. So on the FanDuel board, Cease and Webb are 1-2 in terms of our probability of success. Also getting a lot of ownership, also both negatively leveraged. I think they're both totally worth it, but they are facing challenging offenses here. So are you going to go to, is this kind of an all four sides for you in terms of stacking the offenses here as well? Or do you maybe just pull some one-offs, some pairs from this game as far as hitters go and not really attack the very good pitchers with full stacks?
Yeah, it is all four sides, but I'm less invested in the offense than the pitchers, but because typically if I'm running 150, my top 3-4 owned pitchers, I'm going to have to self-hedge those guys, whether or not it's like Gundacker spot. But this Giants team, they increase the strikeout potential, but they also increase the slugging potential. They're slugging 400 as a team against righties, and this particular lineup has a lane 1 through 5 with 200 to 240 plus ISOs since the beginning of last year against righties. So it's a powerful lineup. So there is some pop there. And like I said, this game is going to play as a day game. We're used to this game being, 7 p.m. in San Fran. This is like a 1 p.m. game. Not that the temps are higher, but I don't know science and marine layers and all that stuff, but it's not going to be as prevalent. So Weird stuff happens when the sun is out. So I definitely think it's worth getting some shares, but that's of course hedging in MME in 20 or less or single. Somebody was asking about single entry in chat. I'm not that enthralled with these guys in a single entry.
Yeah, I think I'd be looking probably more toward grabbing one of these pitchers that way and win it with some differentiated bats there. But who specifically are we looking at from the White Sox side of things if we're driving shares against Logan Webb here, who is maybe the more hittable right now of these two pitchers? Obviously, Timmy Anderson up top for me, Luis Robert, Jose Abreu through the middle. There's a lot of mid-range kind of names after those guys in this lineup right now, though, like Andrew Vaughn, Gavin Sheets, John Moncada, even I would kind of throw into that bucket, AJ Pollock when he's hitting down lineup. What do you like from the combinations outside of the three stars, the Anderson, Robert, and Abreu here?
I do want to take a look at these guys in the left batter's box. Logan Webb, a sub 20% K rate to lefty so far, 382 xFIP, 274 average allowed. Again, keeping the ball on the ground, so we can't really hunt for a ton of power. But if you can bleed some through there, a single, a double, and then maybe a stolen base. So they haven't been stealing as much as I want them to. So Gavin Sheets and Moncada is a guy that he was one of the most the biggest prospects when he got called up. He's just 2,300. I mean, that's really, really, really light for him. So him and Gavin Sheets are interesting to me for getting past the 1 through 4s. I'm not that interested in like Leury Garcia and Sebi. I wouldn't have none in stacks, but I would definitely lower the ceiling on them. And then AJ Pollock, he's a professional hitter, so I'd leave him in the blender. But I think Moncada and Sheets profile is the better matchup because of Webb's, lefty quarrels. And he also has a 9.3% walk rate to lefties as well. So we're just trying to get them on base.
Makes sense. What about the other side, going to specific Giants here against Dylan Cease? Got some quality lefty bats, a lot of lefties in that lineup, but some quality lefty power hitters. Who are you looking at from the Giants side of things if you're going to Giants bats?
Brandon Bell and Lamont Wade are actually high in my power model here. Jock Peterson always can, big swing. And then with Estrada being scratched, maybe there's a little less platoon shenanigans throughout the game. Dylan Cease has allowed a 265 average to lefty so far this season. I do think that can come down, but what's most alarming and really consistent to both sides of the plate is his command. 11.3% walk rate to lefties so far, 10.5% to righties. If the Giants are a little bit more patient here, waiting for the right pitch, they might be able to create some damage. So I do think if we're just hunting out power, though, 1 through 4, with Belt and Wade being the guys that my model like the most.
Yeah, makes sense. Definitely like some of those lefties that way. And for me, probably cut off somewhere around the 5 spot, go 1 through 5 and get kind of obvious about it. I don't need to really push to get Tommy La Stella in the 6 spot. Vossler, Walton, and Casali. If I get shares, like if I was rostering 20 stacks of Giants, I would be fine with getting some shares of those guys. But if I'm cutting it and rostering 4 or 5 stacks of this team, I kind of want to focus on the premium bats up top, I think. So it's not really a full spread out kind of a lineup for me. Anything else from this one, or should I knock out a piece of business here real quick?
Nope. Just wish it was 56 degrees where I'm at.
Yeah, right. Me too. I gotta get this air conditioner fixed. I've taken the cover off. I've been like elbow deep in the thing, trying to like pull rust and grime out of there. And I think it's actually just broken at this point. But anyway, we've got what's not broken is the BetMGM live before lock offer. We've got a special live before lock offer available tonight, guys, with BetMGM. Just bet $10 on any baseball money line tonight. You'll win $200 for free. So you bet 10, you get 200 if you bet on any MLB money line. That seems pretty easy. You don't have to win it, I don't think. It just says bet 10 and you win. You win 200 free. That's pretty good. Click the link in the video description below and claim your $200, guys. BetMGM, not too bad. We'll talk about Odd Shopper in a little bit, where you can look to figure out which one of those bets would be the best one to make. But let's take a look at another game. That was a quick, easy read. We did that one. We've got the Brewers and the Pirates. The Pirates kind of the doormat of baseball for a part of the season, but been a little bit frisky with some of the additions to this lineup now. So is it a challenging spot for Aaron Ashby? They've been pretty good against left-handed pitching through most of the season. Ashby started out well, kind of hit a dip, has been up and down. What do we think of Aaron Ashby here taking on Pittsburgh?
So definitely have concern that he was yanked from his last start a couple weeks ago with that forearm tightness, and that was on June 16th. And he never really, like did a rehab stint or anything like that. So I am worried about how many pitches he might get to today. With a 2-week break. It's not like his stretch out is completely diminished, but I do have some concerns when it comes to pitch count. With that said, this version of the Pirates lineup still gives us some strikeout potential. Because I'm a little bit hesitant on the pitch count, I've kept Ashby ownership to single digits. But like you said, this is not your granddaddy's Pirates, or I guess more so your dad's Pirates from the last couple of years. They've got some fun names. I think they've had. I saw some stat in the last month. They've had 3 players have a triple dong.
Yes, they have. Yeah,
that's incredible. So figure out
Lewinsky, Perez, and Brian Reynolds.
Yeah, figure out which one of them is homering 3 times. I think you'll be all right.
We had a Michael Chavis Don call in the chat room. I kind of like that one. So maybe it's Chavis night. Bare
bones man on DK. I can get behind that. But Ashby himself, though, he's hard to put a bat on. 27.5% K rate so far, 13.2% swing and strike rate. Much like most elite strikeout artists, he does have a little bit of a bugaboo throwing strikes, over a 10% walk rate to both sides of the plate. So maybe if they're patient, if they draw some walks here, we've already seen the speed out of O'Neal Cruz and guys like that. So I'm kind of invested in both sides. I have 6% Pirates and 3% Ashby. So I'm there. I'm not all the way there, but this Pirates team is starting to become a lot of fun. And then the Brewers side of things, Terry, this is the chalk spot of the slate and probably everyone's meditation point. 20% projected ownership, a 12% top stack percentage, and it's Bryce Wilson. And not only that, Terry, you've heard me say it. You win cash games on starters. You win tournaments on bullpens. Yep. Did you see the Pirates bullpen performance yesterday? My goodness!
Yikes! Yeah, they put up a quite large number that I definitely did not have enough of last night. But we had a bunch of people who were on that Brewer stack who did very, very well. Congrats to J187 and Dennis Cubs fan out there. A lot of good solid performances on FanDuel. I assume the same on DK. But yeah, that looks like another good spot to attack here tonight. So I would be going right back there with Brewers bats. Let's get specific on, I assume no Bryce Wilson. So let's get specific on those Brewers bats. Who do we like? Obviously, we've got Yelich up at the top. You've got Big Boy Rowdy in the 3 spot there, but we get a lot of production out of different spots in this lineup from time to time. So who else are you looking at outside of the 2 big lefties, Yelich and Tellez?
1 through 6 is the bulk of my interest here. McCutchen, I'm getting to some shares of him. I don't like him as much in this spot as I do against lefties, but I'm also just like, this Bryce Wilson is really not is not good, and his results against his results are just bad to both sides of the plate. Maybe there's some. He's bad. I'm playing 1 through 6, but Caratini, Peterson, and Jonathan Davis, I wouldn't leave them completely out. If I had to create a podium with those 3, I think it would be Chase Peterson 1, then Caratini and Jonathan Davis. But we're splitting hairs down there. I'm in on a lot of Brewers, but yeah, I was saying this is the meditation point, because this is where the majority of the field's going to be at, and I know a lot of times we just want to fade the biggest chalk on the slate, but man, this is a hard spot to look away from.
Yeah, it's definitely a spot. I mean, if I was playing 150 lineups in this one, I would definitely want to have some. They're 15% owned, like you said, 12% top team stack. So that's the highest ranked stack, technically a negative leverage score, but it's also the highest overall stack score, which accounts for that negative leverage. So there's still a good target here. It's a spot where I would just be saying, hey, screw it. I'll work on my combination being a bit different. I'll work on what I put them together with being different. And I won't really worry too much about that public ownership. I think that's how I would approach this one here. On the Pirate side, you kind of talk through who the key hitters there are. We've got, Brian Hayes. We mentioned Michael Chavis. Obviously, we've got Brian Reynolds there. We've got the gigantic, amazing shortstop O'Neal Cruz. Any love for the Diego Castillos, Dan Vogelbachs, Blind Madrases of the world in the middle of that lineup today?
So Madras is a guy that I think we'll start to get more familiar with his name as he gets more big league swings, really good numbers in the minors. So I definitely don't mind him. Diego Castillo has been a guy that's shown some pretty big pop against lefties in the major league level, but generally speaking, I've less enthusiasm about the Pirates' potential in this spot because I do think Ashby's good, and I also think the Brewers' bullpen's good. You would imagine with them having a 74-run lead yesterday that the Brewers didn't have to dip into their talented arms, so all of their better guys will be ready to go. They only went to Trevor Kelly yesterday. Nobody else came out of that bullpen for the Brewers. So the Boxbergers, the haters of the world, even the Devin Williams, all those guys are going to be available today. So if this game doesn't shoot out, it would be a tough 9 innings for these Pirates bats. So I'm definitely keeping my expectations low, but Madris and Castillo would be 2 guys I'd get to just going after a lefty.
Yeah, I think those guys work in stacks where you're going to Pittsburgh. Not hitters to go out of my way for in like one-offs or anything like that, but in stacks they definitely work. Let's move on. We'll pick up a little steam here. We've got the Marlins against the Nationals. Another game with potentially a little bit of that East Coast weather that we were talking about before. Very similar situation to Philadelphia, so just keep an eye on that. Daniel Castano, I guess, on the mound from Miami, taking on Jackson Tetrault for the Nationals. Any need to roster either one of these pitchers. They're both very, very cheap at 58 and 57 on the DK slate. On FanDuel, they're sitting at 66 and 7,500. So any discount dandies here?
No, I have 0% of either. And it's if you have a sub 15% K rate and a sub 8% swing and strike rate, I just really got nothing for you. And I got nothing for them.
Yeah, I think that makes some sense. So let's just jump in and talk bats here. Marlins frisky from time to time, decent against right-handed pitching so far from the season, from what I know off the top of my head. Nats are the Nats. They're a little bit top heavy here. Do you go to either one of these stacks against some bad pitching?
Yeah, I usually say bad hitting can be bad pitching, and this is it's still a no Jazz Chisholm lineup. But John Birdie at the top of the lineup, if he does get on, he's been stealing at a high clip, and then some of these other power bats like the Jesus Aguilars, the Avi Garcias, the Jesus Sanchez's, they can be annoying for Tetrault. So if you're gonna dare a team to put the ball in play, and that goes for both teams, I got to take shots on both offenses here, and both teams implied for 5 runs. So that's a pretty healthy run total considering the scheme of this slate. I mean, 4.9 implied run total is about the same as like the Cardinals and Citizens Bank Park. So it's not, name brand talent here, but we're just trying to get the most fantasy points. So I'm definitely investing in both sides here offensively.
Yeah, I think that makes some sense. I'll be going to, or I would be going to similar shares of that, and maybe targeting some Soto and Bell and Cruz in the middle of that Nationals lineup, and work my way down to like a Lane Thomas in some shares. I don't love stacking the Nats, but I've done okay with them when I've gone to it, and this looks like a decent enough spot. Nelson Cruz against the lefty used to just be like the smash spot of all smash spots, so I'm still happy to get to that. And I think there's enough capable bats on the Marlins side of things. I agree there. Somebody in chat, I do want to circle back to just a gambler's fallacy that somebody in chat put up, just kind of saying that, hey, the Brewers went off last night, so why would people go back to them tonight? They shot their wad. That's really not how this works. Last night's got very, very little, if anything at all, to do with what their scoring potential tonight is. It doesn't matter if you've seen it enough times before. It has nothing at all to do with their scoring potential for tonight. Just play the actual matchups that you're getting each day. So let's move on from that. I'll do a quick read here for Odd Shopper. Everybody knows and loves Odd Shopper, and then we'll jump into the 5 games that are on both sites here. So let's see. Our sister site, Odd Shopper. Make your best bets in 30 seconds or less with Odd Shopper. Hundreds of bets featured daily. Odd Shopper gives you the edge you need to betting player props and game lines across all sports. Sign up for free now via the link in the video description below down there somewhere, guys, and gain access to our proprietary data, which will help you make your best bets. With expected win percentages and ROIs included, Odd Shopper uses the same DFS projections that we use here at Stokastic to filter out the best bets available. Odd Shopper also features a parlay builder with optimized parlays and an arbitrage tool that identifies risk-free, guaranteed profit bets that you can make across sportsbook. Go and check it out, guys. It's Odd Shopper. It's linked down there. It's Odd Shopper with 2 S's in the middle. It's also a link from the top of Stokastic. Definitely a great, great site if you're making bets. And don't forget, use that to make your free bet over at MGM. $10 bet gets you $200 over at BetMGM on any MLB money line tonight. Not too bad. Gun, let's jump in here and talk about these games that are on both sites now. We've got a 5-gamer on the DK slate here, starting out with the Angels and the Astros. Angels with Patrick Sandoval, the lefty on the hill. Astros answering back with Jose Urquidy. Any love for either pitcher? My favorite would go to Sandoval if I was picking between the two of these guys. What about you?
Yeah, if I was, I'm not really get into either, but I agree with you if I was. Sandoval does have almost a 23% K rate, but he's in line for some negative regression. I guess all regression is negative, but we say positive regression so much, I have to clarify.
Yeah.
A 1.37 whip so far this season, almost a 4 expected ERA and a 4.2 Sierra. None of that really is holding up this 2.63 ERA. And this is a good Astros team, and they got Yordan Alvarez back in the lineup today. So this 1 through 5, 1 through 6 is looking pretty solid. And even last night, we saw Jake Myers and Chas McCormick get involved. I'm looking at ISOs, an aggregated ISO of like 230 for all but like 2 players on this team since the beginning of last year against lefties. It's just a really dangerous spot. So I'm just going to go ahead and sit this one out on both pitchers, and I'm invested pretty decently in the Astros stack. Astros are coming in right now for me as my tied for my second highest owned stack. Then the Angels, kind of like the Nats, they're falling apart, and they become pretty top heavy as a stack. Trout and Ohtani, we've seen it before. We saw it yesterday. Ohtani homered, but Javier still had 8 billion points. So I wish Urquidy had a little bit more strikeout potential to take some shots at this version of the Angels lineup, but we don't. So 1 through 4 is kind of the bulk of my interest when I'm trying to stack the Angels, and then I would kind of spray and pray, maybe rotate like a Marsh or a McKinnon or somebody like that, trying to get a little bit of pop. But 1 through 4 for the Angels, and really all of the Astros. If you had to, pluck one name out of the hat for like FanDuel, Martin Maldonado is expendable, but this is a deep Astros lineup today against lefties.
Yeah, for sure. And this Astros lineup is just a team that I always go to, basically regardless. If it's a top end ace, I might avoid them, but they're always in my plans. They've just been so good. They don't strike out that much. They hit for a ton of power, like you said. Jordan Alvarez and Kyle Tucker, I don't worry about lefty. I'm happy to throw those guys against the lefty because it cuts into their ownership. So I'm right there with you. I would be stacking this team pretty much, 1 through 8 at least. I can take or leave Martin Maldonado, but everybody else in that lineup, I'm all over. On the Angels side of things, I think I agree with you. It's kind of just 1 through 4 for me. I don't really even need to, Rengifo, McKinnon shares don't really do very much for me. Maybe you get to a few Brandon Marsh from the bottom end and wrap it around, but not a major target for me. I agree on, if only Urquidy could strike out guys like Javier, he'd be a target here. Not enough Javier, not enough Brewers was the story of my night last night. Let's move on then from this one. I don't think we have any major specifics to talk about. We can pick up a little time on that. And it looks like, I guess that one's not on the DK slate. And the second game of the Yankees Guardians is on the DK slate. So that was where the 5th game came from. So we've actually got another one to talk about there. So we'll move on now. A little bit tough to keep tabs on when I don't have this lined up properly here. But actually, we've got a really different slate from site to site. Hold on. Okay, that's the 6 o'clock slate that I'm looking at for DK. My apologies. This is a total nightmare with
every Saturday for like a month now. It's been atrocious.
Seriously.
For content.
And when I screwed myself by not getting a chance to look at it, it's just not lined up properly. I'm going to keep going on the page we've got here. The next game I've got up is the KC Detroit game. So we'll talk about that. The Yankees and whatever game that was on the later main slate that we're not going to get to. All right, so Royals and Tigers. Chris Bubich on the hill going against Bo Brisky. Brisky has been a major target for me with just stacking anybody who's going against him in terms of the bats. So I think I would be doing that here again with Royals bats and not taking any shares of Bo Brisky. Bubich, I feel like, is kind of the same story. So maybe it's an offense side of things here. Are you going to either one of these pitchers for cheap?
No, I don't have either.
Bats only here. So what do we like? What do we like from the bats then? I think we're in lockstep on that one. Like I said, Bo Brisky just profiles for power for me. So I would be looking to the heart of this Royals lineup and maybe even rostering it down, toward the Edward Olivares of the world, kind of interesting in the 8 spot for cheap. What do you like from the Royals side?
So I want to spotlight Vinny Pasquantino. He was their number 3 prospect, and when they traded Carlos Santana, that opened up the door for him to step in. And I think he's way too cheap. I thought that last night. He got his first homer. He has a 1. OPS in the minors against righties with 12 homers in 166 at bats, and he's slugging 627. He has power, and I think he's too cheap on both sides, 2,200 on FanDuel, 25 on DK. And you mentioned Brisky is somebody we can get after. He has almost $1.25 homer per night against the lefty. So if you're looking for some value, man, that's my nominee right there for a guy that can come through. Royals wise, just trying to fill out this stack around him. Obviously 1 through 4, Merrifield, Benintendi, Bobby Witt, definitely in play, and Hunter Dozier and Melendez behind him. The bottom 3 there, you know, I wouldn't toss them away but if I needed to cut corners and I didn't want to get to like more than 6% of a Royal stack, I could find Michael A. Taylor, Olivares, and Nicky Lopez as expendable. This Tigers bullpen has been really, really good. So maybe if they knock out Brisky, we don't get high quality at bats against, you know, below average pitching. But if they do enough damage, maybe some lesser effective or impactful arms are there. Mm-hmm. And then the Tigers have started throwing Riley Green in that leadoff spot. Another guy, big prospect, probably too cheap overall. And $6K for Javi Baez in the year of our Lord is 2022 is a little rough. But I guess to his credit, he is sustained decent numbers against left-handed pitching, almost 948 OPS since the beginning of last year. So I don't know that, you know, 6K Javi Baez is something we can all manually click, but if you trust a robot to fill out your lineups for you, he definitely makes a lot of sense in that 2 spot. And then Eric Haas, we can neutralize his 30% K rate with Chris Bubich's 18% K rate. He's got the highest power rating for me in this lineup. I think this could be an ugly offense game with a who's who of who's that going off.
Yeah, I think I'm right there with you. You know, I'd be going to Haas there and grab some of that power. And I tell you what, looking at the FanDuel prices, I'm pretty sure I could sell you Javi Baez for 2.8 on FanDuel as opposed to 6 on DK.
Oh yeah,
it's a little bit better of a spot. So yeah, I'd be looking at some of those guys. You know, maybe don't sleep on Victor Reyes as a potential wraparound from the 9 spot for 2.3. Cody Clemens down there for the dead minimum is take or leave. But I think they're playable here for sure against Bubic. So this would be a both sides or for offenses for me, and I wouldn't be touching either one of these pitchers. Let's keep on rolling here. We'll try and I think what we'll do is we'll knock out these last 3. We'll kind of breeze through these, and then we'll try and do a quick overview of that 6 game because that's the main on DK, and I don't want to completely ignore it. So we'll see what we can do there. So let's jump into Rangers against the Mets. Martin Perez on the mound for the Rangers, up at 10,000 on the FanDuel slate. Trevor Williams on the other side of the equation, 6.4K on the FanDuel slate. Any love for Martin Perez? Are you a believer here in what we've seen out of Martin Perez so far this season?
Yeah, I have a little exposure to him. I believe it's a strong word, but I mean, the numbers are the numbers, and his numbers this year pretty doggone good. Yep. 3.04 expected ERA. The Mets have been pretty solid in their own right here, so a little Gundacker spot. But I'm not that invested in Perez, but I do have him in my pool. I think I have about 9% of them. So I think he's more of a floor play than a ceiling play, you know, more often than not. And this same with this Mets team against him. I think something might give here. So I'm in on both sides, but it's no warm and fuzzies on either side.
Yeah, and I think that makes sense when we're talking about a $10,000 Martin Perez going against a decent Mets lineup. Kind of in the middle of the board, he's a 5.6% chance to be a top pitcher with a 10% is the top of the board. And then obviously 0 at the bottom. 0.0 for Bryce Wilson. Wow, I haven't seen too many 0.0s.
Oh,
we're flat saying Bryce Wilson has no chance of being a top.
That sounds like a challenge. Hold on.
Right? I don't think I've ever seen that. So Martin Perez is dead in the middle of that at 5.6, but he's got a nice positive leverage score. He's a 4.5 leverage score because he's only 1% owned. So I think you can get away with, you know, roster 3%. You're not putting him in too many lineups. 5%. It's not too many of your 150. And if he gets there, he gets there for you. If he doesn't, you don't really worry about it too much. What about the bats in this one? We've got some, you know, potential life in the Rangers lineup the last couple of weeks. And then I think the Mets are pretty good up and down. So on most days, are you going to any Mets bats here? Are you going to any Rangers bats here?
Yeah, obviously the Mets kind of stacked themselves here, and if you can get to Perez, I think they're a talented enough offense that on this slate you diversify your portfolio enough to get them. I'm higher on the Rangers than like everyone else ever this season when it comes to DFS. They just have some fun names and a little bit of sneaky pop. Seager, Semien, Adolis Garcia, Mitch Garver, guys that I get to pretty often. And Trevor Williams, I mean, he's not bad, but he's not like elite. So if you're going to give me a little above average, I'm going to give you a little chance to get hit up here. So I do have some Rangers exposure as well. Trevor Williams' biggest problem so far this season has been his inability to strike out lefties, and his xFIP to lefties has been over 5 so far. Even if that regresses towards like last year's number, he had a 4.36 xFIP to lefties last year, 4.5 the year before that. So it's not like he has ever really gotten lefties out with a lot of success here. So good news for Josh Smith, Corey Seager, and Nate Lowe, even Cole Calhoun to an extent, if we can jump past his 1-4 K rate with the 7% K rate so far. So I do get to the Ranger stack a little bit here.
I will see you on that, and I'll raise you a Brad Miller from the 9 spot. I can't get away from that guy. Can't quit Brad Miller and his quality contact, and I think this is a pitcher he could get some contact against. Typically when he gets bat on ball goes. So I can even get to Brad Miller down the bottom. It's actually a good version of this lineup. This is kind of a 1 through 9er for me. There's nobody in that lineup that I would necessarily discard offhand, just saying, that's a shit hitter and I don't need him. What about on the Mets side of things? Nimmo, fantastic leadoff man. Marte, star power. Lindor, Alonso. You got star power 2, 3, 4. What about the 5 through 9 guys? The JD Davises, Water Escobars of the world. You getting any of those guys in Mets stacks?
Yeah, Escobar is leading the charge for me down there. He actually has the highest bomb rating for me out of everyone on the team, a 288 average against lefties. So again, last year, 245 ISO. So I do like Escobar. Canna, sure. JD Davis, sure. Luis Guillorme, I don't really look for him for any power. Same with Thomas Nido. So 8 and 9 are expendable for me. And then Escobar at the top of the podium, kind of coin flipping JD and Canna. And JD's being a little bit more involved in the 1 through 6 combo. So I probably get to more Davis than Canna.
Makes sense. It's and yeah, Guillorme, the one thing I will say about him is 3 position eligibility for 2.3K. If you're making a bunch of Met stacks and he gets into a few of them, I wouldn't mind that, because that's probably buying you something via the flexibility or the low price. And he's having a nice little season with the stick, even though he's not a big power hitter. Maybe you grab a little correlated scoring for super cheap if you believe in that stack going off against Padres here. So I wouldn't totally discount him. Let's knock out another piece of business, and then we'll just fly through the end of the show and cover all these games as much as we can. Stokastic plus MLB, you guys. You're here for MLB, probably familiar with our MLB product. But if you're not familiar with the Platinum plan, if you're playing any other sports, golf, NASCAR, whatever the hell, MMA, whatever else is going on these days during this hot, sticky, miserable summer, we've got the Platinum plan, and that includes every single sport that Stokastic covers and every single tool that's provided at the site. Not Fantasy Cruncher, that's always a paid add-on, but everything Stokastic is rolled into the premium plan or the Platinum plan here, and you can get a discount, 50% off your first month of a Platinum plan with promo code MLB Live. That's MLB Live, all caps, like the name of the show you're watching here, without the before lock part and all smashed together. If you want just a weekly MLB only package, that starts as low as $18.95 a week. Gets you behind the scenes for the top stacks, top hitters, ownership, projections, all the good stuff. All these different plans get you into Discord, where we're talking about this stuff all day long. I'll probably be talking about the later slates through there, since that's where I'm probably going to be playing tonight. So I'll be hanging around Discord later on, but it's a great package, guys. Check it out. Stop guessing, start winning. Join Stokastic today. And let's jump into the A's against the Mariners. Paul Blackburn taking on George Kirby. I would be much more on the George Kirby side of this matchup, but Blackburn could potentially trickle into a couple lineups for me here. They're both priced in the 8,000s on FanDuel. What do you think of the pitching matchup?
Yeah, Kirby, I think he's my second highest owned pitcher so far, behind Cease. So this Athletics lineup has a ton of strikeouts. 2 through 8 Indeed. Is so much red on my screen that my goodness. So yeah, I think Kirby at 7,800. I'm just hoping like there's a soft landing if he doesn't have a game. I know his last outing was a little bit rough. I'm not one to game log watch, but just to give you an example, he had 26 DK points against them in just 6 innings, 2 starts back. So he does have that type of upside at 7,800. So that's irrefutable. So I do have a lot of interest in Kirby, and I love this matchup too much. We have him as a 17% chance of being the top 2 pitcher. He's really, really high owned, but he's not the highest owned. He's not even the second highest owned. So I think this slate's pretty concentrated at pitching. So if you believe in Kirby, you believe in this matchup like I do, I think it's a good spot. And I don't even have a Scumdacker system going here. I have no athletic stacks, and I don't remember the last time I've stacked athletics. But I will say, if you want to cherry pick, Laureano, Seth Brown, Sean Murphy would be the 3 guys that I'm worried about Kirby getting through. And then Blackburn, he had the most frustrating game as a Yankee fan. He had like 7 Ks, and only one of them was a swinging strikeout. Everyone else was just watching pitches go by. So if you're seeing 7 strikeouts, put a little context to it, knowing that he was just painting and people weren't swinging. That's really not his game. His swing and strike.
And against a team who profiles as a team that does try and draw the walk, try to get on base via the free pass. And just, that was they were pissed off at the umpire that entire game. I remember that one. So definitely context is critical in as far as that goes.
Big time. Sub 10% swinging strike rate, 18% overall. With that said, this Mariners lineup does give you half the team with Rodriguez, Suarez, Raleigh, Moore, and Haggerty all have like an aggregate 30% K rate, but the rest of the guys are 17% or less. So it's a little bit hit or miss. But long story short, don't ever play Blackburn expecting strikeouts like that. If he gets them, he gets them. Julio Rodriguez, Jesse Winker, and Suarez, probably my favorite Mariners to get to. They started handing out suspensions and appeals came through. I guess Winker's not starting his suspension today. So in the coming days, look for this Mariners lineup to be a little weaker, but I guess it won't be today. But it is a really top-heavy lineup from what I'm looking at.
Yeah, definitely a little top heavy. I could play some Carlos Santana in the 4 spot. I still believe in that bat just from years past, if we're only paying 2.4K for it. So it's not like we're paying a premium to get there. Cal Raleigh's been knocking the cover off the ball in recent weeks as a catcher play for 2.5K that probably a lot of people won't go to. But the back end gets a little thin around, the Toro, Frazier, Moore, Haggerty part of it. But I have been rostering those guys a decent amount when I'm going to this stack because they're all cheap. They've got a lot of multi-position through those 4 hitters. So you can use them as combination pieces and you can use them to help differentiate. Like if you're going to a super popular pitch or super popular stack, helps to offset some of those concerns. So I wouldn't completely write them off, but I agree. It's much more about the Rodriguez, Winker, or Suarez side of this one. And then final game on this 4:00 slate, the Braves taking on the Reds. 2 pitchers that I really like here. Very different price points. Spencer Strider, only 7.7K, pitching in Cincinnati, but taking on the Reds. So, decent matchup, bad ballpark. Tyler Mahle on the other side, very good strikeout matchup, but brutal power matchup with the Braves in town in that tiny ballpark. Mahle cost 9.5. What do you think of the 2 pitchers here? I assume you're getting to both of them.
This is the ultimates. This is the Scumdacker game of the slate.
Corners.
All 4 corners are in play here. Great American Ballpark, the best park on the slate, I think, for homers for slate, sure. So. Acuna back in the Braves lineup. We're waiting for him to wake up, but we know he's a dangerous bat. You got to respect. Olsen, all he does is hit extra bases here, batting top 3, and he's 4,300 on DraftKings. I don't know how that happened, but Mahle a 413. Yeah, it's rough. So with that said, both offense, the Reds are a little less like respectable offensively, but the ballpark can kind of offset some of that. Spencer Strider has been really good at 36% K rate so far, 15% swing and strike rate. A little less blemishes on his resume this season versus Mahle a 127 whip. But his expected ERA 3.25, which is much better than his actual ERA of 4.5. So the game of baseball, the game of DFS, for those of you guys that are new, ranges of outcomes, variance. You can look at these numbers and paint several different ranges of outcomes. I think this is a spot where I can't get away from all of them. If I had to rank it, I have the most Braves stacks, then Strider, Mahle, and then the Reds offense. I think the Reds offense finished 4th out of all that. But yeah, I'm on every side of this.
Yep. Yeah, this would be a firm all 4 sides are for me. I'm kind of pissed off I'm not going to be able to play this one, to be honest, because that's kind of the game that I really like. And both of these lineups, I think there are interesting bats through if I'm going down to, the Michael Harrises of the world in the Braves lineup, the Nick Senzels of the world in the Reds lineup. There's just weird, interesting ways you can put these teams together without sacrificing too much quality. Now, I'm not saying take Mike Moustakas, Alberto Mora, Nick Senzel, and Michael Papierski, whoever he is, and stack them together. But if you're cherry picking a couple hitters or one hitter from the bottom of these lineups, definitely helps you differentiate pretty quickly. And they've been frisky, they've been capable, but it's really all about the top end. You talk through most of the hitters here, but definitely on the Braves side, you throw Austin Riley into that blender, or Marcelo Ozuna. They've got William Contreras catching today, so you get a premium catcher bat there. 2 very good catchers on that team between him and Darno. On the Red side of things, talk me through some of the specific hitters on the Red side. I think they're a little bit less known, less publicly oriented than the Braves bats are maybe here. So who are you looking at specifically on the Red side?
Yeah, so the Braves are tough to pick on. So usually we just look at the pitcher and say, what's his weakness? Let's focus on that. Strider doesn't really have a giant weakness. I guess you could say he doesn't keep the ball on the ground as much against lefties, or really against both sides of the plate. So a fly ball hitter might get you in trouble here. But even this bullpen, I think there was a stat that the Braves had the highest team swinging strike rate as a pitching staff in a month. Kind of a weird stat, but it just kind of goes to show that they got some talent here. So if we're gonna get to the Reds, we're betting on the ballpark. We're betting on the Reds' talent, and I think Joey Votto is one of the more clickable names, but he's probably the most familiar name. Drury has had a good season. Tommy Pham, I would get to him, and then Indy in that leadoff spot. Once you get past that 4 spot, gets a little ugly really, really fast. Maybe we're betting on a couple guys to go 2 for 4, 3 for 4, stolen base, something like that. But 1 through 4 is the high end of my interest, and then the Moose could get loose. Sure, I'm more looking for a couple on bases and some stolen base potential, but it's 1 through 4, and then maybe 1 through 6 if I had to elongate a little bit more.
Makes sense. Yeah, the India Drury fam is interesting up there. Like that 1 through 3 is pretty good, has been having a pretty good year overall. And I don't know that people really focus on that too much. So that was what I wanted you to call out there. So you pretty much nailed that. Drury's just been outrageously good this year, changed his swing plan a little bit, and it's just paid major dividends. So let's jump over. We'll do a quick tour. Like I said, we've got 4 minutes before the 4 o'clock technical end of the show, but there's that 6:07 game main slate on DK that I want to at least, jump through here. So we'll talk about that. Maybe we go over by a couple minutes on the show. Are you good as far as lineups go and getting in?
Oh yeah.
All right.
I was good an hour ago.
Okay. All right. So let's take a couple minutes. We'll talk through this real quick. We won't go like super deep into each of these games, but let's talk through, we've got the Rays against the Blue Jays, Rasmussen against Thomas Hatch. Any love for either one of those pitchers?
No, not really.
Yeah, not so much. If I was going to either one of them, I think maybe some shares of Drew Rasmussen, but I don't love tangling with that Blue Jays lineup there. Let me see where he ranks out for us on the top starters tool. Dead middle of the board on top starters, 16.8% probability of being a top 2. What I do like there, though, that I'm seeing on Rasmussen, it looks like the field is kind of thinking about that the same way as I am. Capable pitcher, but don't want to tangle with the Blue Jays. He's only 2.6% owned. So with a 14.2 leverage score, I can grab him from the middle of the board for 8,400 and just kind of use him for that purpose, just for the pure leverage there. What about the bats in this one? I think they're capable bats on both sides. Love getting to the Rays when I can. It's probably going to be a weird, wacky version of the lineup because that's what the Rays always run out here. But we can probably expect G-Man. We can probably expect Wander Franco, Randy Arozarena in there. Anybody else specifically that you'd be looking for in the confirmed version of the lineup when it comes out? Like who are you saying like, oh, I really hope he's in there so I can roster him?
Yeah, it's Troy Franco, Arozarena. Rest of the lineup's really, really rough to get behind. Yep. Maybe Yandy Diaz as well.
Okay. And I'll throw in a Brett Phillips if he's lurking down at the bottom of the lineup for 2,000. That's always an interesting bat for the dead minimum to me.
Brett Phillips closed last night, so he might need a,
I missed that. Solid. Yeah, see, multi capable star here. On the other side, they've it's actually funny. They've got Bradley Zimmer in that kind of the same role as the post hype prospect, dead minimum left-handed bat hitting potentially in the 9 spot on that team. A lot more talent overall, a lot more name recognition on the Blue Jays side of things. Who would you be targeting for Blue Jays bats if you're drawing down on Rasmussen with them here?
Springer, Bichette. I mean, it's 1 through 5. I'm worried because Sean V has let me know that if a team does good one night, the next night they don't. So
that's it. Yeah.
Blue Jays. I don't know if they're going to do good now. But yeah, I think this entire Blue Jays lineup is a lot of fun. Zimmer, wasn't he with Cleveland at one point? I feel like he's better than the numbers I'm looking at, but maybe there's some room for him to go forward. But definitely 1 through 5 of the projected lineup, which is Springer, Bichette, Guerrero, Kirk, and Teoscar. But I think if you rotate a guy like Chapman, he's got some power. Biggio, Zimmer, Tapia, I wouldn't mind spinning the wheel, making a deal on those guys, but I would have a high focus on 1 through 5.
Yeah, I've done well rostering Chapman this year. He's been a sneaky good third baseman for power in a lot of spots. So when I go to Blue Jay stacks, I make sure that he's in a decent amount of them. I spread it out to a lot of this lineup, and I get to him a decent share. Let's move on. We'll talk Guardians and Yankees. Game 2 of this doubleheader. Looks like we've got Nestor on the hill for the Yanks. Savali answering back for the Guardians here. I assume you'll roster some Nestor, even though the Guardians are a fairly good offense. Tend to produce, don't strike out a ton. Any love for Savali on the other side, or otherwise just talk to me about Nestor?
Savali's, his 1 of 5 K rate based on whatever lineup the Yankees put out this morning. They had so they called up Andahar as the whatever guy for a doubleheader, and then Trevino caught Cole. So I expect Higgy to catch Cortez. Trevino's been the better framer, and Cortez has had a last couple games where it looks like he's coming back down to earth, but he's still holding on to a 2.56 expected ERA and a 27% K rate. This is a Guardians team that is the projected lineup I'm looking at only gives me like Franmil Reyes and Owen Miller with high K rates against lefties. So it's going to be a scrappy matchup no matter what. Cole had to work. Cole lost a baseball to Reyes and Naylor, I believe. And Naylor might not be in this lineup because of the platoon spot. So I think we're just playing Cortez, hoping for, 20 plus on a floor. I don't think this is a ceiling spot for him. But the Yankees did put up a bunch of runs, and they didn't have to go to their high leverage arms, other than Marinaccio, who had to bail out Chapman for walking 3 in a row. Welcome back. So this is, if Cortez does get hit out of this game, the Yankees bullpen can tighten up and still cut this game in half. So it's a hard spot to like the Guardians, but yeah, I do have some Cortez.
Yep. And then would you be going to Yankees stacks here, knowing that they scored 13 runs in the afternoon? I don't know if that, day before, game before corollary applies here. Does that same day, does it make a difference? I don't know.
I feel like the same day, it's still in the same bubble of the day. Right. They didn't go to sleep. So I don't know what the rules are, Sean. Let me know.
Yeah, definitely let us know in the chat there whether we can keep pouring gas on that 13-run fire they set this afternoon, or whether we got to bail out. Yeah, that's all. Obviously, guys, like we talked about at the beginning of the show, that's just, one game does not have an impact on the other one. Doubleheaders are weird. There's no questioning that. Guys play 9 hours of baseball through the day. It definitely can get grindy on them, but there's no way to quantify it. There's no way to really discount it. So I'm going to Yankees bats here against Aaron Savali, like it's a pure Yankees against Aaron Savali spot. What would you like to grab from the Yankees lineup here?
Man, I don't know what it is. So if a guy hits 2 homers in game 1, do you start him game 2? Because that's what we're dealing with. So I'm really kind of curious what Booney throws out as a lineup, because I would even use Andahar for a second game. He's a free play today. You don't have to send him back. I mean, you send him back down, but it doesn't cost you an option. Right. So I don't know. I don't know what this Yankees line is going to look like. If it has obviously the usual suspects, Judge and Stanton, those two, but I think we could get a unique lineup based on the results of game 1 here. But yeah, all the Yankees are in play. Savali even amplifies a righty power this season, a 1.6 home run per 9 to righties. And there's a lot of powerful righties in the Yankees lineup. So I would focus on the righties. Judge, if you believe in being due, man, it's about time to get another one. He has the highest bomb rating for me, surprise. And behind him, I'm looking at Stanton and Donaldson. So those guys. Yep.
I assume those guys will be right up near the top of my board. Maybe get a little life out of Joey Gallo down at the bottom of the lineup if he's in there. DJ, the obvious names. Everybody's been stacking Yankees all year long. If you haven't been making a ton of money, and you probably know who these guys are. We talked about the Guardian side. Let's move on. We're going to try and do this. We'll hit the gas pedal here because we're not even supposed to be covering these games technically. Darvish against Tyler Anderson. You Darvish on the hill for the Padres. Tyler Anderson going for the Dodgers. Looks like a 3.7 implied total for the Pods. 4.5 implied total for the Dodgers on the other side. Do you like either one of these pitchers?
Range of outcome wise, yes. You saw last night Blake Snell kind of stunned me with his results. So it's in Darvish to have a solid game against the Dodgers, but it's also in the Dodgers to have a solid game against Darvish. It is more of a beat up lineup without Mookie Betts, but Trey Turner, Freeman, Will Smith, Max Muncy, all guys that we'd get to without question. So kind of a Scumdacker spot. Tyler Anderson in his the rock leg kick could certainly get through this Padres lineup, but this Padres lineup, the projected lineup, doesn't have a ton of high K guys, but like Jorge Alfaro, Luke Voigt, Azakar, and CJ Abrams, aggregate of like 28% K rate against lefties here. And to Anderson's credit, outside of Coors, he's been really rock solid, 3.39 expected ERA. So I might get to a little bit more Yeah, I'll get this is a 4 side, but I'm not as enthralled with a full Padres stack as I am a full Dodger stack. So I may be sub stacking Padres as a hedge instead of full stacking.
Yeah. That makes sense. I think that's how I felt about the Padres pretty much all year long, specifically if I'm comparing them to the elite lineup like the Dodgers. My DK Live thing just popped up here and saying, is Yu Darvish the best SP to build around, even in a tough matchup against his former team? Zach Thompson makes his case inside. So click on that link and read about Zach Thompson's case here for it. Don't know what he's saying, but I would be drawing some shares of Yu. I think the talent is still there, but I don't know that he would be like my prime target on this slate. Who else is on here? Nestor, maybe he is the top pitcher on this slate. This is pretty ugly now that I'm looking at the collection of names we've got to work with here. So maybe he's on to something over there. That's it could be correct, but definitely a tough spot, Scumdacker spot here. So I'd be grabbing some of the top end Dodgers there. And I think if I'm grabbing Dodgers, I would probably take the entire lineup. I have no issues rostering Cody Bellinger. Jake Lamb is at least just somewhat interesting. Still only 2.6 multi-position with first and outfield. Chris Taylor, Gavin Lux are perfectly fine for me at the bottom of the lineup. So does that lineup play 1 through 9 for you if you're taking shots against Darvish in that spot, even if he's the best potential pitcher on this slate?
Yeah, this projected lineup's 1 through 9. I can't really see anybody that I would want to cut out. Even the bottom guys give us some power.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. So those are guys I'll be targeting there. Move on to the next game here. Josh Winkowski against Alec Mills in Chicago. 5.2 implied total for the Red Sox, 4.4 for the Cubbies. No real love for either pitcher, but as we just kind of discovered, this is a very thin pitching slate. So would you be getting it to either one of these pitchers at all?
Yeah. So Winkowski's interesting here because in the major league level, he's got 15% overall K rate, but in the minor league level, he had over a strikeout per inning. So you could believe in some progression coming his way. I mean, it's not like his swing and strike rate's over 10 and his percentage is down. He's not missing bats, but if you think that he's going to start evolving towards his minor league numbers, this might be a fun spot to try and take a shot at him at 7,600 against a Cubs team that does have plenty of strikeouts through and through their lineup. And on top of, maybe believing in that strikeout rate coming up, he's at least keeping the ball on the ground, a 50+% ground ball rate to both sides of the plate. So I do think Winkowski makes an appealing case for tournament exposure because of maybe believing in him finding his minor league strikeout rate on top of keeping the ball on the ground in Wrigley Field. So yes to Winkowski. Mills, we know he's not going to strike people out. That's just not part of his game. So no Mills, but Winkowski a little bit.
Yeah, and that makes sense. It reflects that way on the top starters board. What I will say, Winkowski drawing nearly 20% popularity on the DK slate, so negatively leveraged, but it's just a slate where, we're kind of just going to need to roster some of these guys. And I think I'd rather take shots on Josh Winkowski against what I think is a fairly lousy Cubs lineup than, let's say, Aaron Savali against the Yankees or even Thomas Hatch against the Rays for cheaper. I think I'd just believe a little bit more on the Winkowski side of that. So I think I would eat the weight of public ownership and popularity there. And then you do get a nice little popularity offset in Drew Rasmussen if you're shopping around on that pitcher board. So those are some interesting targets as far as the pitchers go. What about bats in this one? You go into any Red Sox against Alec Mills? I assume that would be a pretty high-end target stack for me. Looks like we've got the confirmed lineup: Jaron Duran, Rafael Devers, JD Martinez, Xander Bogaerts up at the top. What about the 5 through 9 part of the lineup? Are you going to any of the Verdugo through Bradley part of that lineup?
Verdugo, Story, Cordero, Plawecki, and JBJ are a little bit more expendable. Maybe. Yeah. I don't know. We're Sean. Do we get a revenge JBJ bomb? Right? Maybe. I don't know. But 1 through 7 is in play for me. But like you said, 1 through 4 is the emphasis. But Story still has pop, and Cordero, if he can make some contact, I believe he can get on base. Alec Mills has allowed a lot of power to lefties in the last 3 years. So, Cordero's got as much of a chance as any of these bottom of the order guys throughout the slate.
Yep. Yeah. That's why they keep rolling him back out there. It's, it's for that lefty pop. So this is a good spot to exploit it. On the Cubby side of things, it's, for me, it's primarily about Wilson Contreras, Ian Happ, Patrick Wisdom on most slates. I don't love most of the rest of this lineup. Chris Morel in the 9 spot now for 3,500, maybe somewhat interesting. Narcisco Crook hitting 7th. I don't actually know who that is. Dead minimum price, Narcisco Crook. That's a new name for me. So it's primarily about the 2, 3, 4 hitters in this lineup. Any love for any of the other guys in here?
Yeah, I mean, it's been the main guys lately: Ortega, Contreras, Hap, Wisdom. Those are my favorite. Those are guys that are going to profile the best. Crook has an 885 OPS in the minors this year, 268 average. Looks like he's more of a get on base and steal guy. He does have 9 homers, 157 at bats, but he also has 11 stolen bases. So maybe not useless, but he's not like a premier prospect.
Yeah, he seems like a quad A type. Like he's got those capable numbers, but he's playing age 26 in AAA. So to me, that's as a quad A type of a player, and not he'll see cups of coffee like this when they maybe need a live body, but probably not a kid that you can expect to tear things up. But on any given slate, kind of a sport, that's always a guy that you can target at the dead minimum. And hitting 7th in that lineup, if you're going to a lot of Cubby stacks, I definitely wouldn't leave him out. There's a lot of cheap bats in that lineup too, so they make a lot of things work. There's a lot of cheap pitching and everything on this slate too, though, so you probably don't need the discounts, but they're there if you want them. Last game on the board, Dallas Keuchel taking on Austin Gomber, pair of lefties, Coors Field. Dallas Keuchel on the board is the bottom-ranked pitcher. Pitching in Coors Field, he's got a 0.7% probability of being a top 2 starter. So he is still beating out, Bryce Wilson with a 0.0. But not a lot of likelihood for either one of these pitchers really to come through. Would you roster either pitcher, or just is this all about bats in Coors Field here for you?
Yeah, it's gonna be all about bats here. It's Coors Field. Yesterday we got a taste of what Coors is usually or can be, and it was just random homers throughout the lineup. So both offenses. Carson Kelly is free on DraftKings, and he's projected to bat second. And his best split has been against lefties, and he did put one over the wall yesterday. So that would be easily my highest owned catcher at that price.
Yeah, dead minimum price where you need catchers. He's a talented kid, talented bat in Coors Field. That price is broken. That's your cash game catcher if you're a cash game player, I would have to imagine, right?
Yeah, and looking through this D-backs lineup, if Luplo lit off, he's 2,300. Buddy Kennedy 2K, Jake Hager 2K. Like this, I don't know. The Coors pricing is not what it should be. Even on the Rocky side, CJ Cron 5K tops out. That's unacceptable.
Yeah. This is a low price Coors day. Jonathan Daza 2.7, Connor Joe 3.8, Chris Bryant 4.1. This is a cheap Coors day. They're trying to draw some popularity to Coors here. So let's take a look at that in terms of the stacks. Where are they stacking out on the board? Top 2 teams, as you would expect by probability of success, drawing a ton of ownership. Both teams owned over 20%. There's still only Colorado at 24.3% ownership, only negative 1.5 leverage score and a 22 stack score. Arizona right there, they're actually positively leveraged at 1.1 and a 22.9 stack score. So, I mean, those are 2 monster spots based on those prices, based on everything about it. You're going to be hand in hand with a ton of the field, but the numbers say it's basically worth doing. So, I mean, it's roster them at or about the field. If you undercut, make sure you're doing it in the right ways, but that seems like a key spot. Anything else to call out about this 5-gamer on DK here, or can we should we punch out?
Well, I would say one thing. Somebody had asked about a min salary in Cruncher. Usually that's not an issue for me anyway. I don't set a min, but looking at these prices, I feel like if there's going to be some people that end up upgrading spots because they have 4 or 5K left over. I think if you're disciplined and you just play the numbers and stay true to your process and stacks, just kind of build lineups today without these prices in mind, because you're going to get a ton of salary left over.
Yeah, I do not set minimum salary for baseball. I just let it fly. And if I end up with, super cheap lineups, like I always put it into the various lineup builders and take a look at what I've entered and see if there's any, logical swaps where, all right, this lineup's only spending 28,000 out of my 35,000 on FanDuel, and I can upgrade from this crappy pitcher to Garrett Cole with that money. Then I might do something like that in some spots. But even then, I'm still somewhat hesitant to do it, because if it's a pitcher who I think has capability, like he wouldn't be there if he didn't project out well through my model, through my process. So I tend to believe in the process, believe in the model, and just the way that we do things for baseball, with grabbing portions of lineups where you want to grab just, hey, these guys hit, these guys are going to correlate. I don't care that fifth man into that correlated stack, if he's only 2,000 and that leaves 1,500 on the table, I still want that hitter in that stack. So I don't care. It's not something I'm going to change, because it would be downgrading the lineup, in my opinion. So I'm perfectly happy leaving any amount of money on the table for baseball. So no salary minimums for me either. Good question to end on there. Guys, we really appreciate everybody hanging out. Check out everything going on over at Stokastic. I think we've got one more show on the day. I'm trying to find out what that is. MMA Live Before Lock coming up 5 p.m. So make sure you guys are checking that out. And then a full day of content tomorrow. Make sure you hit the like, hit the subscribe for us. Looks like we're not at 100 likes yet. Get us up to 100 likes before you get out of here, guys. We covered a 5-game slate in like 10 minutes. We covered a 9-game slate in like 45 minutes. We appreciate everybody hanging out. This was a fun one. Gun, tell them where they can find you.
YouTube, twitter.com, Gundacker. Boom.
There you go. We're out of here, guys. Good luck tonight. Appreciate it.